Hi, I'm Gail, and in this video I will try to help you decide if the Baekdu Daegan is a trail you should hike. The Baekdu Daegan is a 687-kilometer trail in South Korea. The southern terminus is in Jiri-san National Park, and the northern one at Jinbu-ryeong near Seoraksan National Park. It's not exactly an official trail, and as we'll see, it's actually not possible to hike all of it. An English guidebook was published in 2010 by Roger Shepard, which is how the trail got known in the hiking community. In the early 2000s, Korean films started to get easily accessible in France, and I fell in love with this cinema. These movies definitely made me curious to visit the country, and in 2007 and 2008, I spent 6 months woofing in South Korea and absolutely loved the place. I wasn't a hiker then, but I was when I came back to Seoul for 2 months in 2015. I started to look for long-distance trails in Korea, and that's how I found out about the Baekdu Daegan. And even if I couldn't hike it that year, it was immediately high on the list. I absolutely love the idea of rediscovering Korea by walking across the country in the mountains. And in 2023, I went back to South Korea to hike the trail. You should know that the trail goes through 8 national parks and that you're not allowed to camp in them. Some of them have shelters that must be booked online, but more on that later. There are almost no villages or shops to resupply on trail. This means that you need to hitchhike in and out of town if you don't want to take an expensive taxi. I hitchhiked in a lot of countries, and Korea might just be the best place for it. It's ridiculously easy, even if you're in the middle of nowhere and think you'll stay there all day. This makes resupplying much easier than what it looks on paper. Though obviously there's also always a risk involved when hitching, so it's up to you to decide if that's something you're willing to do or not. And since you don't go through villages and it's a very quiet trail, you should know that it's not the best cultural experience out there. Apart from when you resupply, you could very easily forget that you're in South Korea. So if that's what you're after, the Jeju Trail is more suited for you. This might surprise you, but 70% of South Korea is covered by mountains. The Baekdu Daegan is a mountain spine, and the trail pretty much never leaves it. You are in the mountains the entire time, but it doesn't mean that you always get views. For most of the northern half, you almost never get above tree line, so you better like walking in forests because it's mostly what you'll see there. It gets a little bit better in the south. This is not a popular trail. I only saw one other hiker doing the whole thing. It's mostly very quiet, but some sections in the national parks can see a lot of traffic in the weekends. The guidebook describes the trail Nobo, so that's the direction most people choose. Though obviously the season is an important factor, and because I started in October, I went Sobo, which is the best direction if you don't want an anticlimactic walk. Again, the southern half is way better than the northern one. This trail is best walked in spring or autumn. Not only summer will be very hot, but because water is an issue, you'll have to carry a lot of it on a trail that's extremely hard. And it can rain a lot in summer, especially in August. So for spring, starting early May is ideal. I walked in autumn, and I tried to time my hike with peak foliage time by starting on the 10th of October, but I somehow screwed it. When it's peak time in the valley, the leaves are long gone in the mountains. Also, it started to get really cold, which didn't bother me since I had warm gear, but it was pretty difficult when it got windy. So altogether, I would say that a mid-September start is ideal in autumn. The Baekdu Daegan is a very difficult trail, and for many reasons. The main one being the terrain. I'm used to difficult mountain hiking, but this is insane. The elevation gain and loss is hard, but that's not even the worst. The steepness of the trail is out of this world, and it makes it extremely exhausting. Don't expect to come nearly close to the mileage you had on your most difficult hike. This is a vertical trail, and there is actually a section that is more climbing than hiking. There was one particular section where I only covered 500 meters in an hour. But that's not all. Since you're following a mountain ridge, there is almost no water on trail. It means that you usually need to make a detour, go down and back up. It's sometimes 5 minutes, but sometimes longer, like an hour. There are long stretches without water, and even though I was hiking in October-November, I was almost always carrying 4.5 liters. Also keep in mind that as soon as you leave the national parks, and even sometimes in the parks, the trail is not maintained and completely overgrown. Like you need a chainsaw over ground, which can be extremely frustrating and tiring, especially if you're on the tall side. So my advice is do not take a Z-Lite type foam mattress. because it will get caught in branches all day long. To the point I had to take mine off my bag and carry it under my arm for a while. And last but not least, the logistics. Just a nightmare. There are sections of trail that are closed. If you do a bit of research, you can see that it can be okay to hike those sections, that they are usually just not maintained. Korean hikers certainly do it, but not all the sections. Some are actually really closed and you're not supposed to take them, and it's basically up to you to judge which ones you can take. Needless to say, it can be a major pain in the butt to go around a closed section, and it requires a lot of hitchhiking. There was one closed section that I wanted to avoid, and I saw on the map that there was a trail that could go around this section. The thing was, this trail, supposed to keep me out of a closed area, was prohibited. There was barbed wire all over it, and I ended up in someone's backyard at the end of it. But that was my only option if I wanted to stay out of the closed area. I know it doesn't make much sense. Also, it's almost impossible to respect the no camping rule in the national parks unless you walk for hours at night, which I did. You also need to be aware that if you can't read Korean, you need someone to book the huts for you, since the English version of the website apparently works only with computers and definitely not on phones. So I had my Korean friend Ejin who booked for me, but then when I showed up, the warden said that only the person who booked can stay at the hut. This means that technically a foreigner can sleep in a national park if he follows all the rules. What you need to also know is that most huts need to be booked a month or two in advance, which is of course absolutely not realistic on a through hike, especially this one, because the terrain and getting water will slow you down. What that meant for me is that after hiking one day, I found myself stuck behind a giant fence, decided to skip that closed section. Then I went to a few other places where it looked on the map like you could access the trail, but I couldn't. So I couldn't hike in Seoraksan since it has too many closed sections and the huts were full for a month. So yes, I strongly recommend that you skip Seoraksan since it's actually not hikeable. And that sucks because it's supposed to be one of the best sections, but it's more suited to a weekend hike that you can plan months ahead than a through hike. And on the other end of the trail, I wasn't able to finish since the huts in Jiri-san were full. And it's also one of the best sections. On this trail you stay in the mountains, meaning there is close to zero road walking. But that of course depends on what you do on the closed sections. If you're coming to South Korea, you'll probably land in Seoul, and you should definitely take a day to summit Bukhansan. It is very easily accessible from the city, and it's an awesome day hike that takes 5 to 6 hours. The main resource for this trail is a book from Roger Shepard. There is also a Facebook group, and this blog is pretty good. All the links are in the description below. When you land in South Korea, you should get your local SIM card from the airport, because I don't think you can get one anywhere else. There's also this card that you can buy in convenience stores. You put money on it and it can be used for public transport all over the country, and you can also pay in convenience stores with it. It should take you about 2 months to hike this trail, so you're good to go with a tourist visa. I am not going to sugarcoat it. This was the worst hiking experience I've had, and I struggled to find one positive thing to say about it. Even if there was a project to properly develop this trail, which is not the case, I just don't see a future for it. If the closed sections were open, the trail maintained, and the access to national parks made more easy, which would be a tremendous improvement, it still wouldn't be enough to make it appealing. Because of the lack of water, of the terrain, and mostly considering the difficulty of the trail, you don't really get a good bang for your buck since you spend a lot of time in the woods. I'm definitely not saying it's not beautiful, but I don't think it's worth the effort you put in. That being said, this is just one man's opinion, and maybe there are people out there who like the Baekdu Daegan. I personally can see how anyone would have fun on this trail, but if you hiked it and liked it, let me know, because I'd be really curious to read that story. On the bright side, after this trail, I hiked the Jeju-Ole Trail, also in Korea, and absolutely loved it. And that will be next video. I hope you found this video useful. If so, you can help this channel by simply subscribing and like this video. If you have any question, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching and happy trails!